Well, we've been doing this series up here, Ghosts of Christmas Past. I love this. I was talking to Janae. She was helping us put the stuff together for family movie night. She kept on calling it Ebenezer Scrooge. You know that Ebenezer Scrooge? I finally saw that Ebenezer Scrooge movie. I said, that's a character in this classic called The Christmas Carol. And she just kept on, and now I have to stop myself because the ghost of Ebenezer Scrooge. I almost said that several times. But this Ghost of Christmas Past, anybody that's seen Christmas Carol, it's a wonderful story about heart change and life change. And there's three ghosts, ghosts of Christmas present and future and past. And past is something we all deal with. And I love that this is a series Pastor Terry wanted to do because we get haunted by these ghosts. Our past comes back to haunt us quite often. even when Jesus is like, no, I got rid of that for you. Why are you living in that? And so I just really love it. And the message that Pastor Terry started off with, offense. That thing tends to rear its ugly head every time family gets together. For some reason, that offense just puts its pointy, nosy little nose in the wrong place, and it just nags at us. And then last week, Pastor Case brought us the ghost of shame and how that sometimes we can't be around certain people because that shame pops up and it just covers us, it drenches us, it haunts us. And they gave us the tools through those messages to move past these ghosts. And I want to introduce you to the last one here. We're going to call this the ghost of labels. Now, that's haunting. Labels. We're going to talk about overcoming the labels that bind, overcoming the labels that we often wrongly believe. Now, I think several of you have come into this place today with your label on your forehead. This is who I am. This is who I've been. You've just owned it. And I ask you to be open-minded today as we go through this and to not only take those labels off, but hand them over to the God and let Him give you who He calls you. In fact, why don't we start off by saying this? Repeat after me. I want to just make sure everybody's awake and ready to go this morning. Say, I am a child of God. You can always tell when kids are in the room. I am His. Now remember that, okay? So let's talk first about the power of words. And how many of you know that words are powerful? There's power in words. Words have the power to create. Words have the power to heal. Words have the power to shape. They have the power to motivate. And on the negative side, they have the power to hurt. They have the power to wound. They have the power to discourage. Words have the power to destroy. In fact, there's a little saying that people say, well, it's just words, right? What do we grow up saying? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's a bunch of baloney. That's a lie. Words do hurt. We'd say that as we're sniffling, sticks and stones. Well, why are you sniffling? Because it hurt. Nobody likes that. Words are powerful. I hate that saying. It's dumb. Words can really, really hurt and sting, and often, you know what? Sometimes they stick to us. I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever you say. No. They do stick to you. Sometimes we internally, we grasp onto that. We hold on to it like we're wearing Velcro and it's just sticking to us. Words have power. They can create and motivate, encourage, shape, but they can hurt, they can wound, they can discourage, they can destroy. And the Bible tells it this way. In Proverbs 18:21, it says, death and life are the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits. Now understand this. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. We have the power with the words that come out of our mouth for both death and life. and those who love it will eat their fruits or eat its fruits. It's talking about we have the power to build up, tear down, and we get to receive those fruits. And some people are sharp. They like saying mean things. They like being mean and tear down, and what they receive from it is just more of that somehow it builds them up when it tears people down. You know what I'm talking about? Have you ever met somebody that builds themselves up by tearing other people down? Yeah, that's what this is talking about. But there are those who build people up with their words, encouraging, and they receive encouragement. And words can build or words can destroy. The truth is, when you hear something over and over and over and over and over again, it's hard not to actually believe that it's true because you've just heard it. And if I've heard it this many times, and maybe I've heard it from multiple people, it's got to be true, right? And so we internalize that. Words have shaping power in our lives. And I'm so grateful for the mom that I have. If you haven't met my mother, she's down there. She's the reason I'm getting to preach this morning because she took over kids' church for me today. That lady, if you just have 5 minutes, you will leave a conversation with her feeling encouraged. That's who she is. She's an encourager. And all my life, I feel blessed because she encouraged me. She built me up. When I felt small, insignificant, little, she'd build me up to be somebody special in her eyes. I always have known that I'm loved by her. She always said it to me. I love you. And my dad, on the other hand, I can probably count on one hand the amount of times I heard I love you out of that man's mouth. I always felt insignificant to him, a nuisance, a bother. And I'm grateful because my parents split when I was about 10 years old, and my dad just helped himself out of the picture. So the lasting negative words were gone because now I just heard the voice of this encourager. I'm so grateful for that because some of that stuff that he said when I was a little boy, I can remember growing up and having to reject and not internalize that. Maybe I'm not good enough because my dad didn't stick around. I wasn't important enough to him, so there's got to be something wrong. And I guarantee you there's people in this room that have grown up for that. For some of you, you grew up with words being thrown at you like daggers. You're pathetic. You're nothing. You're a loser. You're never going to amount to anything. I wish I had never had you. Some of you in this room, unfortunately, were not able to be raised by an encourager. In fact, you were raised by somebody who was probably going through their own junk in their life, and they projected it onto you. And for some reason, you believed those lies, and you took it and you stuck it, and now that is the label that you carry. You've been walking through this life feeling insignificant, a bother, a nuisance, never going to amount to anything. Words have such a powerful shaping force in our lives. There are many of us in different areas of our lives that we actually struggle in the present because of the labels we have picked up in the past. We struggle in the moment because of labels that would have been wrongfully passed on to us, and we just kind of owned them. Maybe somebody said about you one time, they called you something. You kind of own that. They belittled you or made you feel less than, and you've internalized these labels. You've allowed it to penetrate you, and now you wear it for everybody to see. Well, if that's what I'm going to be called, then that's who I'm going to be. Maybe you did something even years and years and years ago, and you can't seem to get the guilt to go away. You wear that. That's who I am. Internally, you own that action and connect your identity with something that you did. Maybe you heard something about you on the outside, and you started to internalize that on the inside. Is that ringing any bells in here? Can anybody admit that you're sitting in here today wearing untrue, not right labels that somebody else cast on you, and you went ahead and grabbed it up. This is who I am. Someone said something about you. This is how I feel. You did something, can't shake the guilt and regret. You heard it outside, but you're believing it on the inside. Now, I don't know what the label might be, but certainly there are those you just kind of own, right? You're just a lazy person. You're just average. There's nothing special about you. Maybe you didn't hear this from somebody, but you're feeling it. We believe that the enemy, he goes around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour, right? We call him the prince of liars, the chief of liars. He wants to destroy you, and how does he do that? With these little whispers, these things, you're not good enough. You're nothing special. Look at you. You're just average. You're never going to amount to much at all. Look at you and all your insecurities. You're just insecure. You're a hothead. Huh? You lose your cool all the time. You're overly sensitive. Look at you, sensitive Susan over there. You're annoying. You're pathetic. You're bad at relationships. You're not going to have any of those. Not a single meaningful relationship, because you're bad at them. You're just too much. Dial it back. You own that, right? Some of you might own the idea that my family is just always dysfunctional. You put that label on your family. This is who we are. This is who we are. We're just dysfunctional. You come over, everybody's yelling, nobody likes each other, we're throwing stuff. Jerry, My family is broken. We're never going to have a happy Christmas. You're never going to have meaningful, deep, and intimate relationships. This is who you are, and this is your cycle. Welcome to life. But let's be honest. Sometimes there are some truths to labels. We'll just throw that out there. If someone says you're lazy and you own that label, it's probably because you're not the most motivated person, all right? You're a hothead. The truth is you might actually lose your temper more than the average person. There might be some truth to the label that you've embraced. Here's what I hope you'll understand today, though. What's true about you now doesn't have to be true about you later. Yeah, I want everybody to hear that. Before you leave today, if you're watching online, if you watch this in the future, understand this. Who you are now isn't who you have to be later. Internalize it, feel it, believe it, embrace it. What's true about you now doesn't have to be true about you later, because we serve a God and his power is bigger than your past. His grace is stronger than any label that anyone could ever put on you. What's true about you now doesn't have to be true about you later. Have you embraced some hurtful, negative label that paralyzes you, holds you back, holds you down, tells you that you're less than? I'm telling you that if we're not careful, we see these fancy pastors and these mega churches, and we get sent clips. Hey, have you seen so-and-so's word on this? And if we're not careful, we can look at that and say, you're never going to be as good as that pastor. You're not going to be able to present that word. You know, we have to guard ourselves against stuff like that all the time. I guarantee you, if we have to do that, then you do too. And I know that some people in this room right now are sitting here thinking, no, I'm fine, I'm good. No, what I'm telling you is that somebody told you something long ago, whether it was personal or it was the enemy himself, that you've allowed to stick to you, and you need to let it go today, because what you came in with today is not who you need to be when you walk out of this place. You already said it. You're a child of God. You are his. If you embrace the type of label today, I want to encourage you to name it something different. Name it something different. I want to show you from the Old Testament, from Genesis chapter 29. And I love this story. It's not a Christmas story, but it's a love story. Everybody loves a love story. I'm lying. I don't really like love stories. I watched The Notebook once with my wife. Like, oh, why? This is torture. She doesn't ask me to watch things with her love story-wise anymore, because I'm like, do they actually think this is real? First of all, who runs through a muddy field without their shirt on when it's -20 outside to go get the girl? He's like, girl, you need to come on over here, okay? So much trauma, so she doesn't make me anymore. But this is a good one. This is a good love story. Kind of love story by a guy named Jacob. And he met the love of his life, Rachel, when she was taking care of sheep. Write that one up, Hallmark. Just tending to some sheep. Heather. Yeah, that'll sell. He's looking, he's out. He's running. Jacob's a mess. This dude's a hot mess. We talk about the lineage that God gives Israel, right? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? And Jacob's a hot take on everything. And this is part of his story. He's on the run. His mom sends him to go be with her brother, of all people. Why? Because his brother wants to kill him. And why? Because he was a jerk and stole his stuff, okay? Jacob's a mess. And in the middle of this Hallmark movie, he's walking along, going to his uncle's house, and out comes Rachel. She's tending to her sheep, and he's like, that's the one. I like her. That's a redneck Hallmark movie right there. I tell you right now. Woo! I like her. She's pretty. Hey, listen, I guarantee you if we took a poll in this room, there wouldn't be but maybe 2 real stories in here that make it on Hallmark, okay? Let me tell you, I met my wife in a 7-Eleven, all right? Laugh. It's a real meet cute, all right? Just listen. I'm working graveyards. I'm 21, working graveyard. I'm trying to be assistant manager, whatever. And this hot thing comes in, and she's a little bit, she's just, pre-salvation message, okay? We get saved later, people. I'm up here, I am saved. We went through, okay? But she's messed up, and I'm thinking, all right, she's hot. And she's inebriated, so I'm going to look really good. I can get them digits real easy. That's how we met, people. But it was by God's providence that we became a couple, and we got saved together, and we got married. And it's actually beautiful later. That part, just a mess, man. That's if you got your Hallmark movie off of Wish, That's what that one is right there. I love you, honey. She's going to watch this tonight as she's working. She's going to I can't show my face in church no more. You just ruined everything. So back to our real story. All right. Jacob, he's run from his brother. He's going to his uncle's house. He finds Rachel. Yes, his cousin. Okay. I told you it was a redneck Hallmark movie if there ever was. It was different back then. God blessed it. Unfortunately, she had an older sister named Leah. Interesting enough, this is how the Bible describes these two. Go ahead and put that scripture over. Genesis 29:17 says, Leah's eyes were weak. Man, it's messed up. But Rachel was beautiful in form and appearance. Man, how would you like it if God's word described you with these words? Hey, homeboy's eyes was weak. Scripture says Rachel had a lovely figure and was beautiful. And then it talks about her sister. Her sister had weak eyes. She had to put glasses on. That was it. You know? How are you doing? She had weak eyes. Rachel's lovely in figure, and her sister has a great personality. You know, it's like, some of you in here are laughing but crying on the inside because you know it's like, hey, that's not funny, Pastor. I'm sorry you grew up the one with weak eyes, okay? Praise God, you got a great personality, okay? Thank you, Jesus. I know what it's like. I had an older brother, man. This dude could do nothing wrong. He was smart, made great grades. He was good with money. Always found a way to make money. He was good at it, right? He was popular in school. I was the one with weak eyes, okay? I was short and dumpy. Always had the weird haircuts because I wanted to stick out, you know. I had a mullet when mullet wasn't cool, all right? Had big old dorky glasses, and I was annoying, okay? We're going to pray later, okay? We're going to pray. I've read this often. I was like, Leah seems like a fine young lady, okay? And that's kind of tough. And so Jacob, he's into Rachel. Like, he's really into Rachel. First of all, he sees Rachel first. If he had seen Leah first, maybe he'd have gone and found another encampment. I don't know. But he says, you know, he ran into Rachel, and he loves her. It's like love at first sight. That's the way the Bible describes it. It's not lustful in nature. It was he sees who he wants to be with, right? And so he goes to her dad and says, I want your daughter Rachel. And he says, well, fair enough. Work for me for 7 years. Any of you dudes in here going, if presented with this opportunity to be with your spouse right now, and her daddy said, okay, you're going to work for me for 7 years, then you can marry her. How many of y'all have been like, you know what? Maybe, I don't know. 7? Really? No, but that's who this was. He's like, okay, I'll work for you. And he worked diligently. He worked hard. He worked for that woman and come into 7 years, you know, it's marriage night. And, what does Daddy do? he does the old switcheroo. Jacob wakes up to Leah. Miss Personality. And not Rachel. And I'm going to be real. I'd be a little ticked off. And so was he. And he said, hey, dude, what's the deal? That wasn't the one. I did 7 years. That one over there, the woohoo. Not ooh. No, I did that one. Right? That's what was going on there. And he goes, okay, hey, just chill out. You know, there's this thing. We can't, Leo's the older sister, and we can't do this thing where we can't just let you marry off the young sister and before the older sister. That ain't right. So here's what we'll do. I'll let you have them both. Work for me another 7. First of all, this is the bad dad. He's just the worst. I mean, like, he just tried to get rid of his daughters and get free labor out of it, you know. He said, work for me for another 7 years. So he agrees to it, okay? So he works for another 7 years, and he gets to marry the love of his life, all right? So now it's the nice house and the picket fence and kids in the yard and the dog, you know. It's the American dream, right? No, it's not, because he has the 2 wives, but nothing else, right? Leah's over here popping out children like crazy, and then Jacob's getting all sorts of children from everybody but the one he wants from, right? He wants to have children with Rachel. It's something special here, you know, the love of his life. You want to talk about labels. Let's just talk about Jacob and what he does to his family and creates labels, okay? We know that out of this lineage we get the tribe of Israel, right? The 12 tribes, right? How many of those came from Rachel? 2. That means there's 10 others, plus a daughter in there. There's 10 others who felt less than by their daddy. You read this story, and you see a father putting labels on his children because what was, when Rachel finally did have a child, that was his child. This is the last one, right? Y'all know the story, Joseph? What did he give him? He gave him a coat. We call it the coat of many colors, right? It's beautiful. It's expensive. Lavished on him. How does that look to them other boys over there and that daughter? We're going to dote on this. What does that say for a father? I'm going to tell you, gentlemen in this room, you have the power to put labels on your children. You have the power to build them up or destroy them. And you can see the pattern of these 10 other boys through the story. I mean, Jesus comes from the tribe of Judah. Judah wasn't a great guy. He wasn't. He slept with his daughter-in-law. I mean, there's some ugly stuff in the Bible that if you go back and you look and say, take a moment, Dad. I digress. Anyways. So we know what happens to Joseph, right? And Joseph gets sold off into slavery. And so daddy over here, Jacob, thinks, well, this is my boy from my wife, my real wife. This is the wife I wanted. And I don't have nothing. And so they're just kind of upset and, trying to figure things out. Finally, she conceives a second time. Now, tragically, the second pregnancy doesn't end well for Rachel. I want to show you how this story goes. And I want you to see when you should name something different. Okay, so let's look at Genesis 35, chapter 6, verse 16. It says, "Then they journeyed to Bethel. When they were still some distance from Ephrath, Rachel went into labor, and she had hard labor. And when the labor was in its hardest, the midwife said to her, 'Do not fear, for you have another son.' And as her soul was departing, for she was dying, she called him Ben-Oni, but his father called him Benjamin." Now think about this. As she breathed her last, she held her little son and said, "Your name is Ben-Oni." Rachel named her son something. The father called him something else. We're going to go into this, but I want you to understand something. This is important. Rachel named him one thing. The father named him something else. And I want you to look at what Ben-Oni means. It means Ben, son, Oni, sorrow. So she named him son of my sorrow. Son of my sorrow, which is absolutely, completely understandable, right? Why? What's going to happen here? She's never going to get to feed her son. She's not going to see him take his first steps. She's not going to enjoy watching him grow up. In the moment, she names him what is very true for her, and that is the son of my sorrow. Imagine she's holding her son while she's bleeding to death, and who knows what, just flat out dying. In her last breath, she says, "This is son of my sorrow." Can you feel that? Can you understand the power of words? Thankfully, the father stepped in, because when you think of it, Rachel was not the only one grieving. Who else was grieving? Right? I kind of, when I read this, I kind of felt like, okay, I'm just to show you my nerd side. I thought of Padme and Anakin here. He was like, just listen. Episode 3, at the very end, you feel this story. I'm telling you, anyway. So, Mr. Anakin, Jacob here, worked for his wife for 14 years. He's grieving. This is his best friend. His wife is dying in childbirth. He's hurting like crazy. But when his wife, who he treasured, decides to put something on his son and said, "This is son of my sorrows," he says, no, that's not what's happening here. What may be true in this moment won't be true forever. Do you hear me? It won't be true forever. The father took what was and he named it something different. He named him Benjamin, which means son of my right hand. He took son of my sorrow, a label that could have made him something different, and made him son of my right hand. If you don't like the label you've been given, name it something different. If you don't like what everybody or somebody or whomever has put on you or you put on yourself, take it and rename it. If you feel this about you today, take it and rename it. The Father said, "No, you are not going to be son of my sorrow. You're going to be son of my right hand." Now, it's interesting that Jacob has kind of a history of renaming. This dude's a mess, all right? It's just a big old mess. In Genesis 32, we read a little story about him wrestling with God, all right? Let's just take a look at that real quick. It says, "And Jacob was left alone. A man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him." Now listen. "Then he said, 'Let me go, for the day has broken.' But Jacob said, 'I will not let you go unless you bless me.'" I'm going to stop right here before I finish, because I feel like as a pastor I need to interject. When was the last time you asked for God's blessing? And I'm not saying, "Lord, bless me with a Ferrari," okay? I'm not saying that. I want God's true blessing on my life. All right? I want God's blessing on my family. Well, you know how you get that? You ask for it. This dude wrestled with God and said, "I'm not letting you go, even though you just jacked up my hip, until you bless me." Somebody in here needs to ask blessing in their life. You're struggling with your situations, and you haven't gone to the God who can fix your situation and ask him for your blessing. Jacob wanted it so bad, he wrestled with God. Okay? And he held on tight until he got his blessing. Here's his response, and he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." Then he said, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel. For you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed." Then Jacob asked him, "Please tell me your name." But he said, Why is it that you ask my name?" And there he blessed him. Okay, first of all, let's understand the language here. The guy talking to Jacob knew that his name was Jacob, and Jacob also knew that he was wrestling with God. It's the language the Bible uses. What you need to pick up on here is he asked for a blessing. He wasn't going to settle for anything else other than that blessing, so he wrestled till he got what he asked for, and then he was blessed. Jacob is wrestling with God and endures the night. At the end of the night, he says, "Bless me." I want to hear that. Bless me. No. You're not asking me. You're not asking the person beside you. You're asking God right now, "Bless me." Some of you don't want that blessing. Okay, I'll take your blessing instead. I want to hear you say, "Bless me."
Bless me.
Now, when you go home tonight and you lay down in bed, ask God to bless you. When you're praying for your family, ask God to bless you. When you go to work and you're tired of your job, ask God to bless you. All right? His promises are yes and amen, and if you ask him, he will do it. Bless me. He blessed Jacob. God looks at him and says this. He says, your name is Jacob. Now, it's funny because this mess of a man who got named Jacob by his parents. Let's look at what Jacob means. Now, if you're walking around with that label on your life, you're going to be a messed up person, right? He wore that. That was who he was. He was the deceiver. But now, he says, I'm going to call you Israel, which means my God prevails. You believe that? My God prevails. He prevails in my life. So I know when I ask him to bless me, that's going to mean something. I'm going to get that old label off, that deceiver. That's not me, because I wrestled with God. He blessed me. Now my God prevails. It's in my life. That's the label I wear. How would you like to walk into a place and people are like, there's just something different about you. I don't know what it is, but it's awesome. And you say, well, let me tell you, buddy, my God prevails. That's what I'm wearing right here. Jacob, who is now Israel, no longer called deceiver, he looks around and he says, well, since we are renaming things, I'm going to rename this place Peniel, which means face of God, because I saw the face of God and lived. If you don't like the label that's on you, name it something different. If you don't like what somebody else has put on you, talk to the God of blessing and let him call you something different, because he will, and he has, and he does. You said it this morning. I'm a child of God. I am his. What others would call a curse, I'm going to call a blessing. What others call sorrow, I'm going to call blessing from God. You don't get to choose what comes into your life, but you do get to choose what you call it. What's the saying? You don't get to pick your family, right? You just kind of grow up with them. Well, you don't get to choose what comes into your life, what's over your life, but you get to call it. You get to choose what to call it. That's a curse now. I'm going to take that curse and I'm going to make it a blessing. I want you to name it something else. If there's a label that you've been braced and you don't like it, name it something else. Call it something different. Remember, God's power is bigger than your past. Some of you have been carrying a past behind you that's weighted you down, that's kept you from moving forward. God's got all these open doors for you that you just can't make it through because your past is weighing you down. He's saying, let it go. I'm bigger than that. What happened to he who is free indeed? Wear that freedom. Wear that label. I grew up, man, I would internalize everything that was ever said to me. In my endeavor to be popular or just accepted, honestly. I was mostly annoying because that's how I got a reaction, a response from people. And so it just developed who I am today. So if you find me annoying, you're welcome. It's who I am. I like it. All right? I annoy the crud out of the devil. All right? But I grew up this way, and I would look and really latch on to what people would say about me. And I was like, well, maybe that is who I am. And then it would cause me to change something about me. And pretty soon, into my teenage years, I didn't even know who I was because I was this hodgepodge of what everybody else had said about me that either moved me in one direction or the other until it just all collapsed and I hated everything. And I found some people who just did not care. The anarchist mindset, burn the world, right? I listen to music like ICP Okay, you laugh. I know, it's dumb now. I have a tattoo on my shoulder. Yes. But see, these people thought like they helped me feel a certain way. Well, if the world is going to say this about me, then screw the world, right? That's who I was. I had just labels after labels after labels after labels. When I finally went to Christ, I probably looked like a kid covered in sticky notes, okay? And when I went to Christ and he began to move those labels, it started making me the person he created in me. He'd take that label off and it said idiot. And he's like, who told you this? What? You're not an idiot. I put the brain in your head. I didn't make you an idiot. This is dumb. Ugly. I made you after my image. You think I'm ugly? Oh, no, God. Well, why do you think you're ugly? This is dumb. Not good enough. What do you mean you're not good enough? I created you with a plan and a purpose. Why are you just yanking those off of me? And all of that shifted and became the person he wanted me to be, who he created me to be. Some of you in here have had that on you your whole life, and you need this God to just yank it off you. Look, you're not this person. Quit it. Take it off of you. Quit looking at it. It's not who I created you to be. I carried some of that into being called into ministry. I got called in after I was married. I was working in a career. I didn't have any real biblical training, and I was seeing all these young people just accelerating through theological seminaries, and I was like, I can't even go to college. And so luckily I found this thing called Global University. I was able to do it from home, but I just always felt insecure and not quite there. And sometimes we need to look at it a different way. Sometimes we need to look at it. These struggles that we're going through, these labels that God has helped break us off, can be used to help others. So yeah, I used to feel that way, but God showed me something different. Let me show it to you. So here I couldn't yet internalize or embrace or really believe I was a pastor. When I finally did, 2011, I got my full-on credentials. I was in a little church in Colorado City, Texas, under my uncle. He's an amazing, amazing pastor. He saw stuff in me that I couldn't understand, but I just always felt less than, and I felt like a pretend pastor, a wannabe, a junior pastor, if you will. A lot of times I felt like I was faking it, and I can remember the first time someone called me Pastor Rustan. I was taken back. I can't have that name. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm dumb. Look at these guys. They have all this knowledge. Look at the messages they prepare. I can't live up to that. What? And I took it to Jesus, and I prayed. And I said, God, I don't know why I feel this way. I believe that you called me. I believe it. But I don't know. He goes, yes, I did call you one. And guess what? God's called each one of you. We learned as we were going through Romans that God's called each and every one of us. You're predestined, right? God has called you in. Nobody comes to the Father unless through the Son. And nobody comes to the Son unless the Holy Spirit draws them. We know that. And I was called. He reminded me of that. And he said, you're going to grow into it. And here I am. I mean, there's days of a tad bit of insecurity, I'll admit it, but I've grown into this. I love being a pastor. I love getting one-on-one with people. I get to do everything in this church. I get to go in the nursery. I work in the tots. I get to teach to the little kids. I get to help teach to youth, and I get to teach you and kids. love it. Some of you in here need to understand this, that you're going to have to rename it, and then you're going to have to grow into it. Because you've worn this label your whole life, this horrible thing that has haunted you your whole life. And now God has set you free from it, and he says, it's going to take some time. You're going to grow into it. But this is who you are. Today, do not leave here today, this morning, without letting God give you that new name. You're not son of my sorrow. You're son of my right hand. And anybody that knows anything biblical, the right hand represented blessing. God took sorrow and created blessing. You understand that? That's what he wants for you today. He wants to take your sorrow and turn it into blessing. He's got it for you. He wants to set you free. He's renaming you right now. Well, that's just Bill. No, it's not just Bill. That's a child of God. His blessings are on you. Everything you've ever been told, this is who you are. He says, no, I'm not done with you yet. I'm not done with you yet. Have I called you home yet? Are you in heaven? No, I'm not done with you yet. From the youngest to the oldest in this room, please understand, God's not done with you yet. He wants to remove those labels. He wants to tack on himself. He wants you to walk around in boldness, knowing that you are his child, son of his blessing, daughter of his blessing. Understand that today. Would you stand with me? Special time of the year. I mean, we think about little Jesus in a manger, but Jesus, you were expected. The prophets wrote about you, and a nation was waiting for you. You were God with us, not a God in a distance, not a God far off. No, a God right here with us. And thank you for that, because that's what's special about this Christmas season. You being right here with us. It allows us to shake off these ghosts of Christmas past, these offenses, this shame, these labels. No, we don't carry this stuff anymore. We're not haunted by it anymore, because we've been visited by the greatest gift that could ever be imagined. You, God, here with us, who has set us free, who has named us something new. We are not son of sorrows. We are son of blessings. And we receive your blessing today. And I pray today, God, that every person would leave here shedding what the world, what the enemy would claim over them, and receive